From the Sports Hub Games Network, this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily.
Hey, it's Matt Harrison, and this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily. It's our third ever Fantasy Friday show. With me today, my co-host of the DFS podcast and my buddy who's been on absolute fire with his picks. It's my friend T-Bone Jones. Trevor, how's it going?
Matt, yeah, doing all right. Let's try to turn some of the daily quality information into season-long quality information today.
I mean, you've been killing it on the daily side and really winning a lot of our internal money. So I feel a little bad that you're taking too much of my money this year and maybe a little bit too much of my other co-host. For the first time on Fantasy Friday, we've got a legendary fantasy podcaster, was host of way back in the day, the Fanball Pants Party podcast, which you don't want to say like really close to somebody's face because you'd be spitting. And also the Fantasy Football Party podcast. That's Anthony Maggio. Hey, Maj.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me and my lamp.
I do love Lamp. Maj, you're our resident Bears fan, and Trevor, you're our resident Packers fan, and it's a great week to have both of you guys on the show as it's Bears Packers week. And considering they're like very far apart, you guys are. Maj, you're in Colorado. Trevor, you're in Minnesota. You're not going to come to blows, but are you going to get a friendly wager going in this one?
Yeah, I think we decided the spread is too juicy to not bet on, with somehow the Packers being 6.5-point favorites like that. I had guessed they'd be like 2 or 3, so I'm definitely taking Bears in the points in that one.
Yeah, I don't know if we could put like a $10 Fanball credit on the line since we're states apart, or what a little harder to buy lunch for somebody when they're states away. But.
Send some DoorDash or Uber Eats your way or something.
There we go.
I'll let you guys figure that part out. Today on the show, we're going to go through all of the Week 14 games that are taking place on Sunday and Monday. There's some pretty good ones in there this week, too. Way different than last week's Sunday slate. We'll also introduce you to 9 players on whom you can roll the dice. And we'll see if our panel of experts will be able to solve my 2 tough nuts to crack. And at the very end of the show, we're going to bring back an old favorite from the salad days at KFAN. Lightning round is going to come back. It's going to make its triumphant return this week. Let's see if my... Oh, there's my Lightning McQueen. Ka-chow.
Speed. I am speed.
Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about speed this week. You got to go fast. All right. It helps the show immensely if you show your love and support with a follow and a subscription. It helps us even more if you give us a great rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or even some thumbs up on the YouTube. And we're going to dive right into the matchups. And I have the extra matchup this week, so I get to go first. And for reasons only foretold by the prophecy, we have to start today's show with the Monday night matchup between the Eagles and Chargers in LA. And I'll start on the Eagles side. Jalen Hurts, I'll throw a silver grade on here. The Chargers have been one of the best pass defenses all year, only allowing 184 yards per game through the air, which is second best in the league. A few running quarterbacks have gotten it done, though. Mahomes, who's now a running quarterback, Nix, Dart, and Daniels all posted more than 30 rushing yards, and 2 of those 4 scored as well. So Jalen Hurts still gets the silver here. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, it's a little bit tougher, though. The Chargers secondary has been great all year. Dante Jackson and Derwin James each rank in the top 10 by Pro Football Focus in their rankings at their respective positions. The best matchup is against slot corner Tarheeb Still, who I did not just make up. Still has allowed 100% of the passes thrown in his coverage to be caught over the last 4 weeks and has a 104 passer rating against him. He'll mostly match up with Smith, who runs out of the slot about 60% of the time. And so if you're going to catch 100% of the passes 60% of the time, Devonta Smith is this week's Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works every time.
Nice job. You brought that all together perfectly.
I couldn't believe it. I'm going to give both Brown and Smith bronze grades, though. Brown's been getting a lot of targets lately, and it's tough to just completely pass on them in this one.
You know, still is a terrible last name for a defensive back, by the way. Like
There's
maybe
worse
I'm
things out there.
moving.
Dallas Goedert is very touchdown dependent. He hasn't scored one since week 8, but the Clippers have allowed 6 touchdowns to the tight end position. I call them the Clippers sometimes,
You have to.
including 2 last week to Brock Bowers. He's a low grade commercial bronze this week, which is the lowest grade of bronze you can find on the market. There's probably other options, but it's not the worst thing if you have to start Dallas Goedert. And Saquon Barkley might be the best way to beat the Chargers. The Chargers have allowed 4.6 yards per carry. That's 9th most in the league. They're also giving up about a rushing score per game to the position. And if he continues to get 99% of the running back touches, which he basically is getting, he's always going to be at least a volume silver grade in this one. Then we go to the Chargers side, and it's tricky on a couple different levels. We're going to start at the running game where Omarion Hampton might come back, or is it Kamani Vidal again? So Hampton's practice window was opened last week, and he's been nothing but limited in practice all week this week. And he's still technically on IR, but Jim Harbaugh is saying that he has a chance to play this week. I don't know if that's gamesmanship. I don't really buy it. I think I've got Hampton and Vidal in 2 different leagues, both on my roster. I'm starting Vidal in both places right now because even if he returns, Hampton probably isn't jumping back into a bell cow role, specifically because Vidal's been quality. 25 carries for 126 on the ground last week, plus a touchdown. And if Hampton plays, I think they both get bronze grades. And I think I'd prefer Hampton to just be out this week, and then I'll bump Vidal up to a silver. The Eagles are surprisingly bottom 10 against running backs. They've allowed 141 combo yards and over a touchdown per game. And if that's all Kamani Vidal, I'm feeling pretty good. And the Eagles look like they're going to be missing run-stuffing D-tackle Jalen Carter, who had procedures on both shoulders this week. How do you do that? Did they cut off his arms? Like, what is he doing?
I'm trying to think how that would happen, the double shoulder injury in the same game.
Yeah, that's
like you said,
it's very like Monty Python Black Knight going on there.
Just a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound. All right. And then the next tough decision is Justin Herbert or Trey Lance. And I think it's going to be the air bear in this one. He had a procedure this week on his non-throwing hand, but he was already in practice this week with a brace on his left hand and just chucking balls all over the place. If you've got him starting, you probably need to grab Lance as a break glass in case of emergency option. That would be a really sucky option on Monday night to have to switch to, but you might want to grab him just in case. I'm throwing a bronze grade at Herbert this week, which is like throwing copper, like the 1994 masterpiece by the band Alive. Yes. Trevor, do you know the band Alive?
Nope. You just said a bunch of words that I didn't know what they meant. Yep.
I have it on cassette tape.
There you go. Herbert's still missing both starting tackles, and the Eagles have allowed only one quarterback to hit multiple passing scores since week 5. 3 of the last 5 quarterbacks they face have gone under 200 passing yards, so it's a tough hill for Herbert. And the Chargers wide receivers, this is tough as well. The passing path is right at Adoree Jackson. He stays on the outside. More often than not, it's Quentin Johnston's side. But that dude is the fantasy roller coaster. If he doesn't score a touchdown, you're sunk. Case in point, he's had 0.0 fantasy points in 2 games in his last 5. That's gross. And the Eagles have allowed the second fewest receiving touchdowns to wide receivers this year with only 6. With all those factors involved, including Herbert's hand, the tackles, the Eagles pass rush is good. The Eagles have 2 stud corners in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. I'm leaving all of the Chargers wide receivers on the bench this week, including Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen. By the way, Oronde Gadsden is on the bench as well. The Eagles are basically top 5 in every category against the tight end position. So it's a tough passing matchup for Herbert and whoever he's trying to throw the ball to. All right, let's go to the next matchup. It's the Steelers and Ravens. And Maj, the Steelers head to Baltimore to take on the Ravens for first place in the AFC North. Both teams have kind of had some struggles as of late in the passing game. On the Steelers side, can you trust Aaron Rodgers and company to get anything done through the air?
Boy, anything. Gonna have to define that, but it's not. I mean, they're putting the no in the AFC North for sure right now with that offense. But at least weather-wise, there's not a lot to worry about in this one, which we can't say necessarily for the next game I've got to talk about. But with Aaron Rodgers, I do think that, he can be that low-grade bronze alloy, whatever we have at our disposal. This is more because the Ravens defense just hasn't been what you would expect out of a classic Harbaugh defense there. They've had back-to-back home games. They allowed 17 points to Tyrod Taylor and then 21.9 to Burrow the last 2 weeks. And even one J.J. McCarthy managed 21.2 fantasy points against this defense. With Rodgers, he's got multiple touchdowns in only 5 games this season. 3 of those games have been in his 4 road tilts. So, he's actually done better on the road than he has at home this year. And maybe not getting booed as much when he's on the road. I don't know. So it just can't be higher than a bronze, though, because he hasn't thrown multiple touchdowns in a game since October 26th against Trevor's Packers. He's got a 3-2 touchdown to interception ratio in his last 4. He also hasn't topped 161 passing yards in 3 weeks. His high water mark this season is 249. That's crazy. So it's like, even if it hits, what does that look like, right? Nothing great. So low-grade bronze there. In the run game, Jaylen Warren is a silver for me. He's got double-digit carries and 12 or more opportunities in every single game this season. He's only gone over 70 rushing yards once, though, and only twice over 91 combo yards all season. None of those have been in the last 3 weeks. He hasn't scored in 6 career games against Baltimore. He does have a touchdown in each of his last 2, though, 4 overall in his last 5, so that gets him up to that silver with the usage that he has there. The Ravens have held 3 straight opponents without a running back score and have allowed only 100-yard rusher all year, David Montgomery, back in week 3. So that, again, that's why you top out of that silver with Warren. He just doesn't necessarily have that ceiling. Kenneth Gainwell, we'll give him that participation bronze there, just because the Ravens have allowed 7th most receiving yards to running backs this season. Gainwell's out-targeted Warren 17-6 the last 3 games, though last game it was Warren 4-3 in that tilt against Buffalo. That 42% snap share last week was his first time under 50% of the snaps since week 9, and he had 16 or more opportunities in back-to-back games before that. So I'm sort of seeing that more as a blip than sort of regressing there. So I do think Gainwell does have a little bit of usage here in order to get that bronze grade. He does have 5 touchdowns this season. Speaking of bronze, DK Metcalf, just because he's DK Metcalf and you have to, like, if his name wasn't DK Metcalf, he might get nothing. But at least the targets have been there. He's had an average of 7 in his last 4 games. Hasn't top 40 yards or scored since that Packer game I noted. Ravens have allowed the 7th most receptions to wide receivers and 10th most receiving yards and touchdowns. So, he's on the field, he's getting targeted, but again, because of that low ceiling provided by Aaron Rodgers, there's just not a lot there. So as such, you're benching Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, and there are 3 cooks in that tight end kitchen, and they're not sharing much of a pie within that kitchen. So we'll go ahead and just bench all those guys. On the Ravens side, Lamar Jackson might be the most sort of like what's going on fantasy player right now out there. He had his 3rd straight rough outing last week. Now, there was a totally phantom offensive PI call on what would have been a touchdown to Zay Flowers. Isaiah likely fumbled at the goal line. So stats would have looked a whole lot better with 2 touchdown passes in the last game. But he's dealing with these injuries, right? He's been limited in practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, limited again here Friday when we're recording this. So he's the freaking kid song, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, although it's more lower body, knee, ankle, toe injuries. He missed 3 games with a hamstring strain. Dude got caught behind by a D lineman last week. So something's not right there. And you take away that rushing floor, and he's just not Lamar Jackson. The good news is Pittsburgh's been among the easier NFL defenses for quarterbacks, allowed the 7th most passing yards, 20 touchdowns this year, and even 4 rushing scores. But again, I don't necessarily think Lamar is going to be taken off and running here. The one gold grade I've got in this game is Derrick Henry. Pittsburgh's been above average against the run, just 6 combined touchdowns. But, this is Derrick Henry. He scored 4 times in the last 3 games, at least 88 combo yards. And it is now officially, I don't know if you guys knew this, Dehember. 22 career touchdowns in 21 career December games. That's his most overall, and he's got his highest per game percentage of any month, and his 96.7 rushing yards per game in December is like 20 yards more than his next best November. January is kind of out of it. He's played 2 career January games as well, regular season ones, where he's also December extends into January. I don't know if you knew that. It's science. So against Pittsburgh, he's played them a lot, averages 92 combo yards with 3 total touchdowns in 5 career games. So we love ourselves some Derrick Henry. Benching Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali, they just don't get enough work here on the receiving side. Zay Flowers is the one wide receiver with a starting medal, silver. Steelers have been sieves to wide receivers. They give up league most 14.08 receptions per game to wideouts. 171.75 combined yards per game. That's second most in the league. The last time a wide receiver didn't score in a game against Pittsburgh was week 6, and that was Cleveland, so that doesn't even really count. Zay's getting those opportunities. 5 or more targets in all but 1 game this season. He's topped out at 7 in his last 5 games and 78 yards without a touchdown since week 1, which is why it's only a silver. But he's got pretty good averages, 70.7 yards per game in his 3 career games against Pittsburgh with a touchdown. We got Bateman and Hopkins on the bench. They're just not doing enough, not enough love to go around in that passing game. The two tight ends, though, both bronzes, Mark Andrews. Pittsburgh is one of the friendlier teams to tight ends. They allow the 9th most receiving yards per game to the position and 7 touchdowns this season. And Andrews is getting consistent work. 5 or more targets in 3 of his last 4, but only 1 touchdown in that stretch. And the yardage totals just really aren't there. 102 yards combined in those games. And dude's played Pittsburgh 12 times in his career, including playoffs, only 1 touchdown. So this is really where the Isaiah Likely story starts, because he hasn't scored this season, but he's had 3 or more targets in 5 straight, season high 6 last week, season high 95 yards. Unfortunately, like I noted, that fumble into the end zone. It's the lower floor thing, though. He's only topped 17 yards in a game once. He has scored 3 times in 7 career games against Pittsburgh. He's getting the consistent snap shares. So it's one of those things where Likely sort of the higher ceiling, lower floor guy, which is how you end up with a bronze grade on both him and Mark Andrews.
All right. Shoot for the moon with Likely there. Now it's the moment we've all been waiting for, really. It's time for Bears Packers. And basically it's the battle for first place in the NFC North. Might be the battle for the 1 seed in the NFC, at least the first of 2. Trevor, you're the Packers fan here. What part of the Ben Johnson offense concerns you the most in Lambeau this weekend?
The run game. That's obviously just been excellent for about a month now. So we'll start there. I give both Swift and Kyle Monangai bronze medals this week. Only the Bills have run the ball more often than Chicago this season. Bears are averaging 29 running back carries per game over their last 5, so there's plenty of work for both of these guys. Swift himself has 18 plus touches in 3 of his last 4, while Monangai's got 12 plus touches and a touchdown in 3 straight himself. It is a tough matchup. Green Bay's got the lowest missed tackle rate in the league, the best EPA per rush out of light boxes on defense, and our top 10 rushing yards allowed per game at 98 yards per game for the season. We did just lose Devontae Wyatt, their starting nose tackle for the year. Like I said, the volume keeps both of these guys in play at bronze. Caleb Williams, we're going to put him on the bench. The Packers defense has allowed more than 236 passing yards just once all season. Like we talked about, the Bears are a really heavy run team. Green Bay's they've given up just 1 multi-touchdown game to a quarterback since week 9. So there's not a lot there. Rome Odunze is the only guy in the receiving core I'm giving a bronze grade to. We'll keep the rest of the receivers on the bench. Rome's led the team in targets each of the past 4 weeks at nearly 8 per game. That's about where the good news ends, unfortunately. He's got just 8 catches for over 100 yards combined in those past 3. Green Bay is top half the league defending receivers. We're going to leave everyone else on the bench, but I would keep an eye on Luther Burden going forward. He's got at least 3 catches in 4 straight. Obviously a rookie, maybe kind of turning on at the end of the year here, so just keep tabs on him. Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet, I'm going to bench. Loveland, you could maybe throw the participation medal at if you wanted. When they're both healthy, Kmet sees a little more playing time, but it's really even. They both kind of play about the same. Loveland's got 3 catches in 7 straight games, just 1 touchdown all year against anyone other than the Bengals and their all-time terrible, holy cow, is this real tight end defense. On the Packers side, there's not a ton more options here. We got 3 startable grades. Jordan Love's got a bronze. Chicago did get to their top 2 corners, both Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, back from injury recently. Those guys are very good. That certainly gives their secondary a boost. It is still a really good matchup. The Bears have allowed the 3rd most passing touchdowns in the league. Jordan Love has multiple touchdowns in all 3 of the Bears games that he's finished in his career. The Week 18 arm injury that he sat out the second half. Missed multiple touchdowns in that one. Josh Jacobs is a great play this week. We're giving him a goal. In games that he started and finished this year, he averages 21 touches. We know that LaFleur loves riding him in big games, which this absolutely is. In his first game back from injury after resting against Minnesota, he immediately dominated the running back touches, saw 18 of 24 opportunities, and that was with a little more Chris Brooks mixed in than we're used to. I think that was partially just Jacobs being on the real short Thanksgiving week. Chicago's not a scary matchup. They're bottom 10 in both yards per carry and rushing yards allowed. And Josh Jacobs had 10 days to rest whatever was kind of ailing him there. Christian Watson, we're going to give a bronze grade too. He's been solid since he came back from injury. 6 straight games with at least 45 yards, and he's got 3 scores in his last 3 games. He's also led the Packers in targets for 2 straight weeks now. The rest of the receivers are going to keep on the bench. The Packers are expected to get both Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden back, so it's just tough to pick who's going to be on the field. My favorite's Dobbs just because he gets the most snaps, but we're probably going to need to see this shake out a little bit before we'll feel confident in anyone other than Watson. Tight end, we don't need to talk about that. We're not going to talk about Luke Musgrave today. So that's
all right. Now it's time for Trevor. That was a very good, Packers forward matchup. Now it's time for Maj to rebut your entire
the counter art. The screen just goes to orange and blue over fade.
I saw Maj's eyes just go, oh my God, when you put Caleb Williams on the bench.
Yeah, man. He's going to be part of that rushing attack for the Bears this week. Caleb's been inconsistent, as a passer. And I think even Ben Johnson said that. So, it's no easy sledding going up to Green Bay. So he's certainly he's not as high as he is most weeks in the rankings, I'm sure. But yes, my heart hurt a little bit when I heard bench grade on Caleb.
Oh. It's a bummer. The only way you're going to be able to get over that is to take a little time to hear a little bit more about one of our sponsors, Game Blazers. And look who it is.
If you missed out on the 40 grand prize pool at Game Blazers during Thanksgiving week, I've got good news for you. There's another 40K in free rolls during Christmas week too. In fact, every week has tons of cash on the line thanks to the $750,000 guaranteed prize pool over at Game Blazers during the NFL regular season. Game Blazers combines the best of DFS, collecting, and gaming so you can build your ultimate fantasy team. You rip digital packs to collect player items to build up your inventory. You use that inventory to set lineups and free rolls every week with real cash on the line. Plus, there are free mini games to earn XP and level up your GB pass, which is a rewards pass that gives you boosts and bonuses just for using the app. Get the premium GB pass and you can earn even more and better rewards. Sign up now to get your free starter pack and use referral code FFAD for a free rare pack too, valued at $25. Plus, once you're done with onboarding, there's a spend 5, get 50 offer where $5 gets you 2 more rare packs. Learn more at GameBlazers.com.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Almost Daily. You can find me, Matt Harrison, on Twitter or Blue Sky at Explosive Output. Trevor is at TJones5 on the Twitter machine, and Anthony Maggio at Blue Sky at Noco Maggio. And it's like Joe DiMaggio, but without the duh.
Yeah, without the duh. I noticed in that ad the lack of lamp, and I didn't like it. I'm going to have to keep this. I need to get a second lamp so I can leave this one down here.
I agree that you need more lamps in your life. I mean, that could just be your lamp all year round in your office.
Yeah, that is true. I leave it upstairs. So it usually lives in I live where the road kind of tees. And so everybody drives like straight at my house. And then right in that center upstairs window is the soft glow of electric sex gleaming in the window for everyone. So it needs to be there for the holiday season. But yeah, the other 11 months, it can be right here.
That's true. All right. It's time for a segment we like to call Roll the Dice.
It's now time to roll the dice.
These are 9 players that might not normally be in your lineup, but you may want to roll the dice on them this week. Let's start with the quarterback position and Trevor Jones. Who do you got?
Yeah, I was all teed up for Marcus Mariota here until we got the news that Jane Daniels was going to start about an hour before the pod started.
Mhm.
So it's a little weird to me. Jane Daniels is my my roll the dice quarterback, but it is a
What are
tough
you
defense.
taking a chance on? You're rolling the dice here.
Yeah, we'll roll the dice on a tough Vikings defense here. So JD5 always gives you that rushing ability, obviously. Minnesota's been strong season long against rushing quarterbacks. They've only faced 3 who can kind of actually run. They gave up 36 to Lamar early off of his injury, 58-1 to Caleb in week 1, and then 26 to Caleb 2 weeks ago. So there is a little bit of room there for JD to have some rushing success. Also, he'll have his full pass catching arsenal back, as none of the top skill position players were even on the injury report, which you can't say much this year for that Washington team, especially the receivers. I don't know. I just wonder if you could see sort of the sort of team lifting performance that we got from Joe Burrow in his first game back against the Ravens on Thursday night.
All right. Jaden Daniels is Trevor's roll the dice quarterback. And Maj, who is your quarterback at the roll the dice position?
I like to get guys that are like in my age bracket, so I'm going with Tyrod Taylor versus the Dolphins. No, he's actually he's probably still like 6 years
10
younger
years
than me.
younger than you, I'm pretty
He's
sure.
in my age bracket.
It would have to be Aaron Rodgers plus at this point. I'm at the age now where I leave my reading glasses within arm's reach, and I have a bag of Werthers ready in case.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
you can't use Tom Brady as your roll the dice quarterback this week.
Yeah, so now I'm going with Tyrod Taylor. Going against the Dolphins, should be fine weather-wise there in New Jersey. The Dolphins, they've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season, just slightly under 25 yards a game. They've also allowed multiple passing scores in 3 of their last 4. Now, the last time these 2 teams met down in South Beach, it was Justin Fields still at the helm there. He had a 226-yard performance, threw a touchdown, also rushed for 81 yards and a touchdown in that game. Of course, Tyrod's the old man's version of Justin Fields, but he was able to really make some hay with A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie last week. He's scrambling. He's really, he keeps it looking like a professional outfit on that offense. So he does have just the 1 passing score in each game he started, but he's got 63 rushing yards and a score, plus only 1 interception. He should have had that second touchdown last week. Your buddy John Mechie dropped one in the 3rd quarter there in the end zone, Matt. So, but it's not a super high ceiling here. But he's a guy like, if I were doing like my own weekly rankings, despite my disdain for the bench grade on Caleb, Tyrod Taylor might be ahead of him there in the rankings.
Ooh. Wow, we got Maj to admit that Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Caleb Williams.
Print it.
I got Tyler Shuck at Tampa Bay. Multiple touchdown passes in 2 of his last 3 for Shuck. 239 or more passing yards in each of the last 3. And Tampa's on the docket this week. Their pass defense has been dinged badly in the last month. Every quarterback in the last 4 weeks against Tampa Bay has hit 270 yards and multiple touchdown passes. If that's the low water mark, Tyler Shuck easy in this one. All right, we'll move on to the running back position. Trevor, who you got?
Yeah, we'll go Zach Charbonnet at Atlanta this week. No weather issues, obviously, inside the dome. Charbonnet's averaging 11 touches per game since Seattle's week 8 bye, and he's the preferred red zone goal line option. Charbonnet's outtouched Ken Walker 20-11 inside the 10-yard line this year. 7 touchdowns to Walker's 3 from that range. Atlanta's a good matchup, bottom half of the league in rush yards allowed and running back touches allowed. Specifically, the touches is important. The Seahawks are a good bet to clear 30-plus carries in this one. 3 of their last 4 games, we've seen 39, 33, and 32 rushing attempts, and they're more than a touchdown favorite in Atlanta. I think Charbonnet and Walker can both see 15-plus touches and a touchdown here.
All right, Maj, who do you got at your roll the dice runner?
Sticking with ties, I'm going with Ty Johnson instead of Tyrod Taylor. He has had a steady 27% or more snap share now for a month, and in 6 of his last 7 games. The Bills last week ran the ball 51 times as a team, which is insane. So Ray Davis actually got 9 carries and had 62 yards, but that was his first work in a couple of weeks. It really, Ty Johnson's that passing down back. And, this is a game where it's one of the highest, I think 52.5 for an over-under in this game. Cincinnati can put up points, so I do think that Johnson's going to be on the field, continuing his streak of that high snap share. He's got 25 or more combo yards in 4 straight, 52 or more in 2 of his last 3, and I think he catches a couple passes here. So this might be more of like a PPR. If you're in a standard league, it might not be the shine on that metal might not be quite as bright, but I think that this is an opportunity to sneak Ty Johnson into some lineups.
All right, Maj, you had a tie for your quarterback and your running back. I had Tyler Shuck, and now I'm going to Tyjae Spears. Here we go, more ties. I hope it's not a tie in Cleveland against Tennessee. That would be gross.
It'd be about right for that game.
It would be. It's impossible to run against Cleveland. It's also impossible to drop back to pass for longer than 2 seconds against the Browns, or Myles Garrett will kill you. So that's why in just the last 2 weeks, running backs have had 17 receptions against the Browns defense in just 2 weeks. Spears caught all 6 of his targets last week, by the way. He's only not caught 2 of his 30 targets this year. He's a near lock for 5 catches and 30 yards in a normal game. In PPR, that's 8 points. Everything else that he does is gravy in this one. All right, let's go to the receiver position, a wide receiver or a tight end. Trevor, you're going first.
Yeah, we'll go for the tight end portion here. We'll go Brenton Strange, Jacksonville's tight end, home against Indianapolis this week. So Strange has started and finished 6 games this year. In those games, he's gone under 10 PPR points just once, technically twice. There was a 9.9 in there. He has at least 3 receptions in all 6 of those as well. A former second-round pick led the team, in catches and yards 2 weeks ago, and then followed it up last week with a 3 for 45 and 1 outing. Where the Jags tight end defense we know is terrible, gives up 2nd most catches, 4th most yards. The Colts kind of invert that. They give the 5th most catches and the 2nd most yards to the position. Brenton Strange, good pick this week.
All right, there we go. We got a tight end. Maj, what do you got? A wide receiver or a tight end this week?
I have a wide receiver, and I'll say in the spirit of the ties, I did my damnedest to make it Tyler Lockett, and I just couldn't. Couldn't fudge the numbers enough.
To be fair, I couldn't get to a starting grade on him either. So
there was, Tyrell Shavers was an option with Buffalo. I was like, I just can't. It's too far down. So Jaden Higgins, we'll call his middle name's probably Ty. At Kansas City. He's had a 56% or more snap rate in 7 of his last 8 games, including 4 straight. So, they've really gotten him more and more involved here in his rookie season. He's a big dude. Like with him and Nico Collins on the field, that's that's quite the task. The literal tall task for defensive backs. So 4 more receptions in 4 straight in 5 of his last 6 games. His targets the last 4 weeks, 7, 9, and 5 touchdowns in 2 of those, a floor of 38 yards. Now, unfortunately, all 4 of his touchdowns have come at home this year. So the home road splits don't look as great from a fantasy scoring standpoint, but I am confident that even though that Texans defense is really good, that Mahomes is going to do enough to keep the scoring happening. Like Houston can't just completely take the air out of the ball there. So Stroud will drop back enough in this game to keep Ty Higgins relevant.
There we go. I had 2 ties in my receiver. If you drop the R and the O from his name, it would be Ty Franklin, but it's Troy Franklin. This week's matchup is just so juicy against Las Vegas. Franklin scored in the week 10 meeting versus the Raiders, but the problem is he hasn't scored a touchdown since that one. And his buddy Bo Nix, he targets him in the red zone. Franklin's the best red zone target that they have there. It's been shown over the year. And the Raiders have allowed the 5th most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this year, including 2 more last week to the Chargers wide receivers. So I got Troy Franklin in this one. Time to pop back into the matchups, and we're going to go to one of mine. It's the Dolphins and the Jets, and almost laughably, this is a matchup between 2 of the hottest teams in the AFC. The Dolphins have won 4 of their last 5, and the Jets have won 3 of their last 5. So what's the big key to their success? Well, on the Dolphins side, it's Devon Achane. He's gold, Jerry. Oh, I got to hit that button.
I love gold.
Oh, I missed that one. How about this one?
That's gold, Jerry. Gold.
Gold, Jerry. Gold. Achane has had at least 16 PPR points in the last 5 weeks, where the Dolphins have won those 4 games. Last week was the first week in a month that he didn't catch 5 passes. He's had 3 straight games of 120 or more rushing yards. And the last 3 top running backs to face the Jets have had 32, 22, and 30 PPR points. He's in a smash spot this week. The rest of his team is not, though. Tua Tagovailoa is on the bench, as is Jalen Waddle. The Jets' defense is not bad, at least against the pass. Even after losing Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, they held Lamar Jackson to 153 and no scores 2 weeks ago. They held Kirk Cousins to 234 and 1, and Tua hasn't topped 100 yards in the last 3 weeks. And 2 of those games were against the Commanders and the Saints. If he's not getting it done against those guys, why is he going to get it done against the Jets, who are actually kind of good at pass D? Waddle is getting like 3 catches per game now, and I think the upside you can hope for is what Zay Flowers did 2 weeks ago, and that was 5 catches for 58 scoreless yards, so that's a bench grade for me for Waddle. Not in on Darren Waller either, but if he's available in your league, pick him up and stash him on your bench right now, because he gets Pittsburgh and Cincinnati in the next 2 weeks. And it's Pittsburgh, their tight end defense is bad, and Cincinnati is the worst in history in your fantasy semifinal. So Waller could be very startable in your fantasy playoffs. On the Jets side, Breece Hall, he's still a bell cow. Another 21 touches last week. By the way, Isaiah Davis had 0 touches and 1 target last week. Didn't catch that target. And the Dolphins are allowing the 5th most combo yards per game to opposing runners at a 145 per game clip. That's all Breece Hall. He gets a gold grade in this one. Tyrod Taylor was Maj's roll the dice quarterback. John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell could get it done against Miami because Chris Olave and Devon Vele got it done last week. Both scored a touchdown and cleared 14 PPR points. Mitchell was the focal point last week, clearing 100 yards, scoring, and most importantly, not dropping any balls, especially near the end zone. Mechie saw 8 targets as well last week. Tyrod's throwing the ball. I can find my way to bronze grades on both, but I'd bet in many cases you have better options. But I think I'd like both of these Jets receivers, specifically over the Chargers receivers who I poo-pooed in my earlier matchup. So that's kind of where we're at when we get down to it. Mason Taylor's the last player in this game. He's got a bronze grade as well. The Dolphins have allowed the 6th most receptions, yards, and scores to the tight end position. He's probably capped at like 9 PPR points, though, as that's what Juwan Johnson, Zach Ertz, and Isaiah Likely scored in the last 4 games. So if you need Mason Taylor to score you 9 points and that'll help you, that's what you're looking at. So it's a very, very weak bronze grade. One of the more intriguing games on the Sunday slate is a matchup between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow in what could be snowy Buffalo. I gave my Yukon Cornelius game of the week, and I'll play Yukon here.
Gold and silver, silver and gold.
And we hope this is rich with gold and silver, silver and gold. But I gave it to the Detroit-Dallas game in my Thursday night matchup, and I think I nailed that because there was a lot of good players in that game. But I assume even in a difficult matchup, Maj, against a tough Bills pass defense, we're still firing up Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've got a silver grade on Burrow and a gold on Chase to get our silver and gold out of the way there. It's like the one Christmas movie I don't have physically referenced on me right now, but that's all right. Yeah, with Burrow.
I mean, you're wearing a stocking cap like Yukon Cornelius.
That's true, and I got the beard going, and it's turning white. So, this is a Bills defense that's only allowed multiple touchdown passes 4 times all year and no more than 2 in any game. So that's led to 12 for the year, fewest of any team. And only Mahomes has actually surpassed 175 net passing yards in their last 6 games. But I mean, like you said, that's why it's a silver grade on Joe Burrow, not a gold grade as it typically would be. His toe didn't really seem to limit him last week. He scrambled a few times, even had a 4th down QB sneak after not playing at all since week 2. So yeah, you're firing up your Joe Burrow. I'm going to pivot. I've got the running backs here next. I want to talk about them quick because this is a very bad Bills run defense, but I've actually only got a silver grade on Chase Brown. So let's get the Bills stuff out of the way as far as their defense. They have actually improved their last two games. They played the Texans and Steelers, two teams who would much rather run the ball than throw the ball, and they combined for just 166 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. The problem here, when you're looking at Chase Brown, so you had Samaje Perine return to action last week after a 3-game absence. Now, if all you're doing is looking at Chase Brown's box scores, you're like, so big freaking deal, right? The Bengals ran 80 plays last week, which their average is below 61, even including that 80. Like, this is a team that does not get off that amount of plays. Like, it ended up being one of those games. So, Samaje Perine returned and actually got right back to his 40% snap share. And Chase Brown was down to 60% after he had a very successful stint as a bell cow when Samaje Perine was out. And not surprisingly, he's shown he has the talent to do that. And so even though his box score looked the way it did, and he's now got 6 straight games with 100+ combo yards. I just can't get him, up to that goal because of Samaje Perine being there and taking enough of that volume away. And with Perine, frankly, I do think you can get that deep league bronze, that participation trophy bronze on if you had to. He's actually kind of in the same game. I talked about Ty Johnson already, and they're sort of like that mirror of each other based on how these offenses work. Because of that play volume last week, Samaje Perine got 14 carries and 2 targets in his first game back. He ain't getting that. If I could promise you 16 opportunities for Samaje Perine, he'd be more than a bronze against this defense. But, I do think there's going to be plenty of passing here, like I said, with Burrow in that silver grade and them needing to keep up, with the Bills offense. So again, you could potentially sneak him into your lineup if you needed to. Jamar Chase, he's Jamar Chase. It's gold. I don't really need to go into too much detail there. T. Higgins is back this week from that nasty concussion. I've got a bronze grade on him. He has 6 or more targets in 7 of his last 8 overall, 5 touchdowns in his last 5. Yes, those were with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was awesome. And again, speaking of quarterbacks my age, big Joe Flacco fan, but Joe Burrow, I think, can pick up where Joe Flacco left off. You're benching the other guys. There's just not, there's not going to be enough volume to go around, and Mitchell Tinsley has eaten into Andre Yoshevach's target share, so those 2 guys can sit. And yeah, there's really nothing on the tight end side of interest in that on that side either. So I'm going to move on to the Bill side. Josh Allen, gold again. Josh Allen, you don't need much more than that. James Cook, also a gold in this one. Now, last week's run heavy attack really worked for the Bills. They needed to do that because they were missing both of their starting tackles. It sounds like they're going to get Deion Dawkins back for sure. He cleared concussion protocol today. They might get Spencer Brown back as well, so they don't necessarily need to, hide. You don't hide Josh Allen, right? But you do limit his pass attempts. They don't necessarily need to do that, but because this rushing attack is so good, and the Bengals are the easiest run defense to face in the league, 5.18 yards per carry they're allowing, second most in the league, with the most combo yards per game and combo TDs allowed in the league. You're going to get a lot of James Cook here. He's had 20 or more opportunities in 3 of his last 5 and no fewer than 18 in that stretch, or 16 all year. He is coming off a season high 32 rushing attempts. Like I said, they had 51 as a team last week. I don't think they get 51 this week, but they could be 40 plus. I don't know that they want to be giving James Cook 30 plus carries, in multiple games in a row here. But I think if he got, 15, 16 and a couple targets, he's going to make plenty of hay against this defense. I already talked about Ty Johnson in the receiving part of the game. Khalil Shakir, I can put a bronze on. He had a freaking TD go through his hands last week, so it's now a 5-game touchdown drought for him. He's really just the closest thing they have to a consistent threat in the wide receiver room. But that's not saying a whole lot because he's pretty inconsistent. He's had 7 plus targets in 4 of his last 6, but 4 or fewer in 2 of his last 3. And then he's getting these crazy swings. He had a combined 2 yards in those 2 games where he had the 4 or fewer targets, but then sandwiched in the middle, of course, is an 8-catch, 110-yard game, right? So his slot role, it's netted less than a 50% snap share twice in the Bills' last 6 games, including last week. So if you have to start a receiver, it's Shakir. Everybody else is on the bench. Josh Palmer, his ankle kept him out last week. We're not sure what's going to go on there. Tyrell Shavers actually led the team in snap share last week, but didn't get a single target for the second straight week. You've got Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, Keon, seriously, guys, just pick a couple receivers and go. So just ignore those. What's really interesting, I think, is the Dalton Kincaid question. I've got him as a silver if he plays. Tight ends absolutely crush the Bengals, as you noted, Matt, with their historically bad tight end defense. No defense allows more tight end receptions, targets, yards, or touchdowns. With Kincaid, he's been very efficient, but because he's only had 35% of the snaps this year, his high water mark in 3 games played since week 5 is that number. He can be hard to trust, but you just sort of have to, hold your nose a little bit and put him in your lineup. He does have 6 targets in 4 games this season with 200-yard games and 4 touchdowns. Hamstring actually popped up on the injury report this week. He had been out with the knee as well, but getting limited practices in. So if he goes, you play him and you hope he stays in the game enough to take advantage of the matchup. If he doesn't go, I do think you can put a bronze on Dawson Knox. 72% or more of snaps in 3 straight weeks with Kincaid hurt, and he's had a steady 3 or 4 targets in each of his last 4. He just hasn't scored yet or top 37 yards. He was actually the first read on Keon Coleman's touchdown last week, but Knox was covered, so Allen moved on. But yeah, because of, again, that matchup, you can go Dawson Knox if you need an emergency tight end if Kincaid does not play.
The Bengals are a full 6 PPR points per game worse than the next worst tight end defense. A full touchdown.
Yep.
It's insane. And Isaiah Likely, if he doesn't just drop the ball on the 1-yard line, that's the 14th touchdown they gave up.
He felt bad for him. He's like, you know what? I don't need this.
Yeah. Trevor, let's move on to the next matchup. It's the Seahawks traveling across the country to Atlanta. And I assume that you feel that this one could be very one-sided in favor of Sam Darnold in Seattle.
That would be a pretty good estimate. We'll start with Sam Darnold there. I'm going to put him on the bench. Since week 7, Darnold's got just 1 game with multiple touchdowns, 1 game with more than 26 passing attempts. It's hard to get fantasy points when you don't throw the ball.
Trevor benching quarterbacks left and right this week.
Yeah, I just, 12 guys, which should get, decent grades, or maybe 14. I don't think Darnold's one of them this week. It's another spot where Seattle looks like they can just get a lead and run out the clock against this Falcons team that they're doing the Madden sim to end, right? We're 6 weeks in and my team's 2-4. And I'm just like, screw that. And I just hit the let's run this out button. Ken Walker, will throw a silver grade on him. Walker's had consistent workload this year, 3 straight games with at least 11 carries and 3 catches. However, just 1 touchdown since week 3, so hoping for some positive touchdown regression in a good matchup here. The Atlanta, again, bottom half of the league in rush yards, catches, receiving yards given up to opposing RBs. Walker fills that role as a pass game back for Seattle. We already talked about Charbonnet as the roll the dice guy. JSN will throw an osmium grade on. Osmium is the densest naturally occurring element on Earth. So there's that. You at least got some science knowledge.
So what does that mean?
I thought I was the densest on Earth.
He's just such a dense ball of fantasy production. I don't know.
Okay.
The rest of the receivers, they're not getting enough work to matter. Cooper Kupp is old. Torrey Horton's on IR. Rashid Shaheed's out there running wind sprints. AJ Barner, I'm going to bench. You could kind of throw a dart at him. He is getting tush push work for them right now. Although Atlanta's allowed just 1 tight end touchdown all year, so it's not a good matchup. On the other side, there's not a whole lot going on here outside of the normal 2 characters. Kirk, we're going to throw Kirk on the bench. It's just tough for him right now. Seattle's a top 3 scoring defense since Seattle's week 8 bye. They've given up just 7 total touchdowns to quarterbacks. I'm not looking for Kirk to be the first guy to put up multiple on them in a minute. Bijan Robinson is a gold play. It's not as great as it normally is. Seattle is top 3 in rushing yards and touchdowns allowed. So dial your expectations down a little bit, but he's playing in your season-long lineup. Drake London, I'm going to throw a bronze on if he plays. He was DNP on both Wednesday and Thursday of this week, so check the report after you listen to the pod here. Last 4 target totals before his injury, though, were 10, 14, 8, and 9. That kind of volume is just rare. It keeps a guy if you're getting that many targets, anybody's in play. Seattle's pass D is very good. Like I mentioned, just 1 receiver since week 9 has crossed 50 yards against them. And that was Puka Nacua with a scoreless 75. So it's a really tough matchup, but Drake London's volume keeps him at play. We're not playing David Sills, Kader Haj, Darnell Mooney, whoever else
No,
is
we're not.
running guys out there. And then Kyle Pitts, we'll give a bronze to. Tight end's a wasteland past like the first 5 guys. Pitts did put up 7 for 82 last week. Seattle's one defensive weakness is tight end. They actually are bottom 3 in catches and yards allowed to the position. I'd like to play more without Drake London because Kirk and Kyle Pitts have a little bit of a connection going on, and Kyle Pitts would be the last like above 70 overall player on the skill position on the pass catching roster there. So keep an eye on Drake London's status for a lot of these guys.
I'll chime in and just note that I did see come across while you were talking ruled out for week 14. I haven't confirmed it on a second source, but according to Fantasy Footballers anyway, ruled out for week 14.
I'm going to upgrade it to bench then. I'm going to say don't play Drake London. That's the advice you got here for.
Woo! All right. Thanks, Trevor. I wanted to remind everyone that today's show is brought to you by Game Blazers. Try Game Blazers this week to win your share of $36,000 in prizes and free-to-play contests. Sign up with the referral code FFAD for a free starter pack and a free rare pack. Learn more at GameBlazers.com. I drew the Titans and Browns matchup, and let's just say this here is nasty. The over-under for this game is 33.5. This is tied for the 13th lowest predicted point total
I'll take
in
the under.
last 10 years, which is 2,674 games.
I'm trying to remember, like, what would the matchup have been? Like, it's got to be like a Zach Wilson Jets team against somebody. Or...
It was something.
It's got to be all time.
There was a couple of Patriots teams that were bad in there. I had it pulled up. I think maybe I have it here. I do. It was Patriots versus Jets in 2024.
Oh man.
And I think that over under was 28.5. 28.5.
That seems impossible.
And also, yeah. That's crazy.
Speaking of scores, sorry, I saw a story in the Atlantic come across that there has never been an NFL game that's ended 36-23. Isn't that weird? Sorry, I'm here to derail the podcast. Go on.
We've really derailed it by talking scoregamis now. All right. Well, here we go. I'll start with the Titans side, where Tyjae Spears was my roll the dice running back. And that's it for the Titans, because the Browns defense is really good. Here's why. The Browns are top 5 in the following defensive categories: passing completions and yards allowed, rushing yards and touchdowns allowed to quarterbacks, yards per carry and rushing scores to opposing running backs, receptions and receiving yards to wide receivers. They're first in the league in both of those, by the way. So Tony Pollard, Cam Ward, whatever random wide receivers they have, like Van Jefferson, who led the team with 3 catches and 20 yards last week. That was their high water mark for a wide receiver last week. Gunnar Helm has the softest landing spot, but George Kittle and Brock Bowers, those guys are elite, and they mustered only 10.7 and 11.5 PPR points respectively against this D. So I got to think that Gunnar Helm can only get to like maybe 6. Yeah, they're all on the bench. On the Cleveland side, Quinshon Judkins might have the backfield to himself, as Dylan Sampson hasn't practiced this week with a calf injury. Judkins carried the rock 23 times last week for 91 yards and added in 3 catches and 18 yards through the air. He scores touchdowns in advantageous matchups, and this is one of those. The Titans have allowed the 5th most touchdowns to running backs this year with 16, a very solid silver grade for Judkins. And I forget the Electrum, somewhere between a silver and a gold. I think that's what it was, the Electrum grade. Shedeur Sanders is on the bench. He's got a good matchup this week, but he did in both of the last 2 weeks as well. And he managed 209 yards and 149 yards through the air. And he doesn't add anything at all on the ground. If you want to look at the spike game angle, Sanders was talked about as a possible first overall pick way back in the day, but the Titans took Ward and then proceeded to pass on Sanders like 7 times in the draft. So still no. His favorite target is Harold Fannin, who caught a touchdown pass last week. I'm leaving him on the bench, though, as the Titans have been top 10 in every tight end defense category And as the top target, he might only get 5 targets. So that's not enough to get him going. Jerry Jeudy was one that I highlighted as my deep sleeper on the DFS show. And I still hate it. I got a bench grade on him. The matchup is just really ripe, though. The Titans are so bad against wide receivers. They're allowing 168 yards per game to the position. That's third most in the league. But if it's a game that means anything to you in week 14, I can't see a scenario where you're starting Jerry Jeudy and trying to make a playoff spot. That doesn't make any sense. So,
Maybe over your Chargers guys, huh?
No. I don't think I'd even do that. It's too gross. All right. Last matchup of this segment, Maj, the Commanders and their nearly league worst defense head to Minnesota to take on a Vikings team that scored 6 points in their last 8 quarters. It's like stoppable force meets movable object. But on the other side, the Vikings have had a super tough D. So who from the Commanders are you starting with? Jaden Daniels coming back.
Yeah, that was Jaden Daniels was the roll the dice quarterback for Trevor there. So we can move on to the backfield where the 3-headed monster is now led by one Chris Rodriguez. So we'll give him a bronze grade. Minnesota's allowed a running back rushing score in 6 straight. Rodriguez is that lead horse right now. He has top 40% snap share in his last 2 games after not doing so at all earlier this season, but it's not like you're real excited about just barely over 40% of snap share, right? So you can't really do much, more with that. He's got double-digit carries in 3 of his last 4 overall, 3 touchdowns in that stretch too, but only 2 targets. So there's not even, like a PPR floor here. Jeremy McNichols is the one who actually gets some of the targets, but he's got 15 carries and 5 targets in his last 3 games. Just 1 touchdown all year, though. That's not enough to get him off of a bench grade. And, Bill Krosky Merritt, we hardly knew ye. Sorry, but yeah, he's kind of he's the least of the factors among those top 3. In the receiving game, I've got a silver grade on Terry McLaurin. I should have let you say Terry McLaurin. Sorry, there you go. Yeah. And I should know it's illegal to have anybody not you say Terry McLaurin. I did it again. Oh my god!
Like that, you can get all Irish or Scottish or whatever I'm doing there. Try it out.
Oh, we'll see. I'll work on that for next time.
Yeah.
The Vikings have been very stingy against wide receivers. 104 catches by wideouts all year is actually the fewest in the league. 8 touchdowns all season to wideouts are the 7th fewest. But with McLaurin, he actually got a 51% snap share after a 3-week absence last week. And I do expect that to continue to climb. And he scored in his last 2 games he's played. Season high 14 targets and 96 receiving yards last week against another tough defense in Denver. And it was like over the middle stuff too, not just, the long, deep stuff. So he's very involved in that passing game. So like I said, silver there. I'll give Debo the bronze as well. It is one of the best individual matchups of the week going against slot corner Josh Metellus. His targets have been consistent, no fewer than 5 since week 3, 15 total the last 2 games. He just, again, the ceiling's not necessarily there, which is why the bronze grade hasn't topped 74 yards since his 95 in week 5. Does have 5 touchdowns, which is nice. And he's getting regular snaps. Aside from that, though, Treylon Burks catch of the year potentially last week. So congrats to you, but that was his only one. And Noah Brown, Bears enemy number 1 Noah Brown from last season might be back as well. So we'll keep those guys on the bench. Zach Ertz, though, he will get a silver for me, 67% of or more of snaps each of the last 3 weeks. And he had only bested that number once all season previously. So he has just continued to work his way more and more into that offense, which is odd. Like, it's not like he's a rookie. He's been around a little while, but they've figured out that, he's got good hands, except for that target in the back of the end zone against the Broncos last week. 4 more targets in 7 straight games, 4 more receptions in 6 of his last 7, 42 plus yards in 4 straight. No touchdowns since week 7, since he dropped that one last week. But again, when you just factor in those receptions and yardage floors, that's a silver grade for a tight end, man. You'll absolutely take that. On the Viking side, JJ McCarthy. Hey, Max Brosmer had one job last week, and it was to make people excited for JJ McCarthy to come back, and he succeeded. He did it. So
he did it.
I honestly, this was one I've still waffled. I have Bronze. I had him bench, but I have Bronze on here. I do think he's probably in like that Tyler Shuck roll the dice category. As far as where he might fall on a rankings list. Washington's allowed 23 passing scores and 269 passing yards per game, which is the second most in the league. So it's like there's really not that many better spots to bring McCarthy back for. Yes, he's been awful. A 2-to-6 touchdown interception ratio in his last 3 home starts, only topped 158 yards in one of his 6, and topped multiple TD passes twice. I think maybe he gets a little more design runs this week. I think that might be, this is a defense he could potentially do that against. And so that's where there might be enough of a floor that if you needed to, like in a super flex league, he could be a Bronze type. But yeah, I wouldn't be real excited about the prospect. As far as the running game goes, Aaron Jones, I have a silver on. He did come out of last game. But, running backs have been piling up 148 yards a game against Washington. That's the 3rd most in the league. And Jones has clearly, separated himself. This ain't no 1A, 1B backfield. He was used 5 times on the first drive. He was on his way to a big usage game in that Seattle game before he got hurt and had to come out. Double-digit opportunities for him in each of his last 5 after getting eased back in week 8 when he came back from injury. And despite limited practices all week with that shoulder injuries, the Vikings, they have not hesitated in the past to after limited weeks, just throwing Aaron Jones back out there and letting him roll. So it's like I said, silver, because there's a little bit of that just kind of re-injury risk. And of course, the existence of one Jordan Mason, who would be a bench. If Jones were to sit, it would be a surprise. But then you actually have a consolidated backfield with Jordan Mason potentially. And so then he could become a silver. He's only got 1 touchdown, a high water mark of 47 yards, which was last week when Jones left early. In the last 6 games here, double-digit opportunities just once in that stretch. We saw a little bit of Xavier Scott last week, but that was some garbage time stuff too. CJ Ham has popped up for 27% or more snaps in 3 straight after only seeing action on 31 snaps in the combined 9 games prior. Not that he takes a lot of carries away, but it is body on the field, where Jordan Mason could be. So like I said, silver if there's no Jones, otherwise he's on the bench. In the receiving game, Justin Jefferson gets like the name recognition bronze. Only 21 combined targets the last 3 weeks after averaging more than 9 per game the first 9 weeks. You take out the Brosmer game, he does still have at least 4 receptions in all but 1 game, but still sitting on just those 2 touchdowns. So it's like if his name wasn't Justin Jefferson, you'd probably have him on your bench, but it turns out it is. So he's a bronze. Jordan Addison's going to be on the bench. It's just inconsistency with the target numbers. You like the talent. It's just too scary to trust in this game right now, even though, he's only actually had 3 fewer targets than Justin Jefferson the last 3 weeks. And then lastly, I'll put a bronze grade on TJ Hawkinson. 16 combined targets the last 3 weeks, which is nice. That doubles his total from the prior 3 weeks, and he's coming off that season high 59 yards. Washington is allowing the 10th most receiving yards per game to tight ends and 6 touchdowns to the position this season.
All right. I have this weird feeling that they're going to try to make Justin Jefferson real happy this week and try to get him over 100 yards and a score. It might be the Randy ratio for Justin Jefferson, the Justin Jatio. I don't know.
Put him at running back and he'll get all the touches.
There we go. All right. Let's take a quick break and see what our friends at Fanball have cooked up for us this week.
Fanball is DFS for those of us who can't devote full-time job hours to scouring news feeds, memorizing depth charts, or tracking our status on the Roto Grinders Top 50. We get it. You've got a life. But also enjoy a good sweat when you're not coaching Little League or taking in your 5th soccer game of the weekend. And at Fanball, you can still 20, 50, or even 100x your entry fee. Every week of the NFL season has 3 feature tournaments. You can take down the $1,000 top prize in the Peacock with just a $20 entry. $5 gets you in the High Five, where first place wins $400. Or throw a buck in the Buck Hunter for a shot at the $100 top prize. And if you decide you want a little more skin in the game, you can find up to $100 NFL double-ups and $50 winner-take-alls. So register today at Fanball to scratch that DFS itch without worrying about whales. And use promo code ALMOST for an up to $20 deposit match.
I liked in that commercial that there's a little video of some little league players, and one of the kids' names was Mad Max. It scares me.
There was a couple good ones on those jerseys. That was nice.
All right, now it's time for a segment that we like to call Two Tough Nuts.
It's time for Two Tough Nuts.
To crack. Yeah, to crack. Those of you who want to play along with us at home, make sure that you play Two Tough Nuts very safely. All right, here we go. Tough nut number 1. Almost every year we seemingly have a fantasy playoff hero that kind of comes out of nowhere. In 2018, it was CJ Anderson for the Rams. In 2015, it was Tim Hightower for the Saints. Ron Dane did it for the Texans back in 2006. We can go all the way back to 2004 when it was Drew Bennett for the Titans. So who will be the fantasy playoff hero out of nowhere this year? We'll start with Trevor.
So I wanted this to be someone pretty available on the wire, so that the listeners had a real shot at whoever the player was. So I ended up on Rams backup running back Blake Corum. He's owned in 22% of ESPN leagues. Through the first 6 weeks, Corum had 34 touches. However, over the last 6 weeks, that number has nearly doubled to 62, including 3 different games with at least 13 touches. Corum's main competition, Kyron Williams, has seen his 3 lowest touch counts of the season all come in the past 3 weeks. ESPN's Dan Graziano on the split, he asked the OC and the staff there in LA, quote, "They've been rotating Williams and Corum drive to drive, will continue to do so. The OC told me he thinks they've been seeing the best version of Williams because he's fresher. The Rams have their sights set on January and February games, want to keep everyone as fresh as possible. So it sounds like we'll keep seeing plenty of Blake Corum the rest of the regular season. The Rams fantasy schedule is pretty good too. We have Detroit in week 15 and what could be a shootout as that Detroit defense kind of fades. Week 16 is at Seattle. So that's about as tough as it gets. But then you come back with Atlanta in week 17 in a dome in a fantasy championship week. Falcons currently have the 7th worst rushing defense in the league. Give me Blake Corum to be the late season hero on a team that's 6th in offensive scoring this year."
All right. Maj, who will be the fantasy playoff hero out of nowhere this year?
The first hero is me because I totally lost my screen there and couldn't find my mute button, but I nailed it right at the last minute. Second hero, I'm going to go with Devin Singletary. I didn't check roster percentages, but I would imagine Singletary is probably in the same ballpark as Blake Corum is there. Tyrone Tracy, he really actually did seem like plan A against New England in week 13. But then Singletary came in to start that second quarter, got the hot hand. He really was the Giants offense for back-to-back drives, ended up with a wildcat snap and scored. And then Tracy got hurt. It seems like it's allegedly, Tyrone Tracy is going to be fine, but it might've been a situation where Singletary may have just kind of taken the reins there. The unfortunate part is these silly week 14 buys, of which New York has one of them, because the timing of it staggers in a way that may not make Singletary as useful to you as you need him to be that hero, because week 15 is going to be most people's first game in the fantasy playoffs, right? And so you've really got to go out on a ledge to play Devin Singletary, in a really nice matchup. So we'll see. But, New York finishes with home games against the Commanders and Vikings before traveling to Vegas. So it's like you could play him in that Commanders game and actually probably be fine even if it didn't work out, because his opportunities these last 3 games are 17, 14, and 15. And he does have 3 touchdowns in that stretch. So even if it doesn't work out, as I think it might, he's still probably going to do okay for you. Then you've got the Vikings game, which is, we noted that being a tough matchup, but then week 15, Vegas for a fantasy title, you got to love that. And, we'll see, Jackson Dart doesn't seem to want to stop running as much, even though they would like him to, but if they can convince him to stop getting absolutely obliterated on the sidelines, that might be a few more opportunities for Devin Singletary.
Those are both really great answers, but they're both completely wrong. Devin Neal of the New Orleans Saints is the correct answer. And Devin Neal is owned in 53% of leagues right now. He got 17 touches last week against Miami. And Evan Hull was the only other back that logged a touch. He had 5 carries for 15 yards, and that's not very good. The schedule for the Saints is a primrose path in the playoffs. The Panthers next week have allowed the 4th most combo yards to the running back position. The Jets, the week after that, have fallen apart in the run game after Quinnen Williams was moved, and they've allowed 7 touchdowns to running backs in the last 3 games. And then they get the Titans in week 17, who've allowed 16 total scores to running backs. That's 5th most in the league. Devin Neal could be your leg lamp. He could be your Christmas miracle. Let's go, Devin Neal.
53% ownership. Like, that's a guy who should be on everybody's roster right now.
He should be, but he's not.
Half of you got a chance, though.
There you go. Tough nut number 2. Which rookie from this 2025 draft class has the best chance to dominate in the last 4 weeks of the fantasy season, sending their 2026 draft stock soaring? Maj, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm going to go with Jaquavius Daquan Marks, otherwise known as Woody Marks.
Is that from Key and Peele?
It sounds like it, doesn't it? Aaron. Yeah, this is a situation where he hasn't scored in 3 weeks. He has a maddening 3 targets in that stretch because this dude is a great receiver. But honestly, what that's done is kept him under the radar. He had 20 opportunities last week for just the second time all season, 17 or more in 4 straight. So this is a dude who's getting the work. Now, the Chiefs pose a very tough matchup this week, no doubt. But then you've got Cardinals, Raiders, and Chargers to finish things off. That's one of the better runouts for running backs the rest of the way. He's dealing with an injury. He's been limited in practice this week, but he should be fine and out there. So I think what's going to happen here with Woody Marks is those opportunities are actually going to start netting real fantasy outputs. He's going to get a couple of touchdowns, break 1 or 2, and then that's just going to shoot that's going to shoot his ranking up, because then all of that sort of that backstory, that I just went through, all of that's going to show the consistency and usage and put him in the RB1 conversation, not overall, but as an RB1 on a fantasy team next year.
They probably don't have to deal with Nick Chubb or Joe Mixon mixed into that backfield too next year. Trevor, who is your rookie that's about to see his fantasy stock go soaring?
Who would you guys guess is the leader in Offensive Rookie of the Year odds right now? If you had to guess.
Man, Emeka Egbuka?
It's not a bad
that's
guess.
a good answer.
Maggio.
I mean, shoot, Jackson
McMillan?
Can't be McMillan, can it?
It is Ted McMillan.
It is?
He is currently plus 110 favorite. Jackson Dart number 2, and then Egbuka 3. So I actually landed on Ted McMillan. His final 4 games of this season are at New Orleans in a dome. Great spot. Home for Tampa's bottom 5 pass defense. Home Seattle. That's obviously really hard. But then you go back to Tampa to finish the year out. So you get 2 bottom 5 pass matchups there. Frankly, I think he's already like a top 15 to 20 NFL receiver in the league. I think the football collective would realize this if the quarterback had a pulse. In the question, you said who has the best chance to dominate? I think dominate is the key word. Ted is a guy who can dominate people physically. Often takes multiple defenders to bring him down. Moves incredibly well laterally for a guy who's 6'5", 215. And he's put up big stats, right? He had the 8 for 120 and 2 against Atlanta a couple weeks ago. If he could just have a couple highlight plays down the stretch in Carolina, brings in quarterback competition. I don't think they replace Bryce, but I think, a Geno or a Mac or some sort of veteran addition, we could be looking at a top 3-4 round player. And like I said, he's currently a favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Those are both interesting and great answers, but they're both wrong. The correct answer was almost Devin Neal again, but it's not. I did look at Ted McMillan, and I was a little bit nervous that that Seattle game, he might throw a goose egg in that one, and that might burn him. And I really wanted to go RJ Harvey so badly, but he faces 3 top 10 defenses in the fantasy playoffs, and that's probably not going to work out for him. So I went with Quinshon Judkins. Shadur isn't going to be asked to pass all that much, and the touch totals have been legit for Judkins since Shadur took over. He's just under 20 touches per game, and while the yardage hasn't been great, I noted his great matchup against Tennessee this week. He gets the Bears next week, and they're middle of the pack against the run, and Cleveland's going to try to pound the football in that one in Chicago. The Bills are the week after that, and they're actually terrible against the run. So I think that he's going to have a great game there. The Steelers are in the final week, but after 3 straight weeks of, I think, really good matchups, I think that's what people are going to remember. And if you want to add in week 18, by the way, where people like look back at the stats from the whole previous year and they'll add in week 18, he gets the Bengals in week 18. So he could put up 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game, and then all of a sudden cement his legacy. I think that Quinshon Judkins has the prospects of being a top 2 round pick in ADP next year.
It's a good one, and he's getting like they're just taking Shador off the field in the red zone to put Judkins in to run Wildcat stuff. So he's just multi talented.
Yeah, and obviously Cleveland could have a new coaching staff, it could have a new quarterback, it could have a lot of new things next year, but they won't have a new running back. It'll be Quinshon Judkins. Those were my 2 tough nuts. I wonder if you cracked them. Trevor, let's go over to another battle for a divisional lead. This time it's the AFC South and the Colts versus Jaguars. How do we think Danny Dimes is going to fare this week and maybe the rest of the season on his broken leg that he's playing for?
Not ideal to have the old broken fibula. We'll still give Indiana Jones a bronze this week. He only has 4 rushing attempts since we learned of the broken fibula, which is scary. And only 380 combined passing yards over the last 2 weeks. However, all of his pass catchers are healthy, and I do mean all of them. Jacksonville struggles defensively against quarterbacks. In just the last 5 weeks, Jags have given up 284 and a score to Geno, Davis Mills, and Jacoby Brissett. At least 284 and a score, I should say. So we keep Indiana Jones alive for that. JT is a gold. Jacksonville does have a top 5 run defense. So again, kind of like what I said with Bijan, adjust your expectations just a little bit. Receivers, we'll keep Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce active. We'll give those bronze, and we're keeping Josh Downs on the bench. Current target totals for the Colts' top 4 pass catchers: Pittman 82, Warren 78, Downs 60, Pierce 59. So these guys are all really concentrated, which makes it kind of hard on a week-by-week basis to pick them out. Pittman gets the passing grade based on his volume, while Pierce gets it on big plays. Alec Pierce has averaged over 78 yards per game over his last 6. Josh Downs is a good player, I think, but he has just 5 catches over his past 3 games combined, so we're leaving him alone. Tyler Warren, we're going to give a goal to the tight end here. Continue to pick on the Jags tight end defense. This is the weekly spot where we go through the numbers. 2nd most catches allowed, 4th most yards, 6th most touchdowns to the position. They even gave up 10 catches to the Titans tight ends last week. And Tyler Warren's been okay recently, at least 5 catches or a touchdown in each of his past 4 games. And he's also getting tush push opportunities with Mr. Jones's broken leg. On the other side, we've got the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, we'll keep it a bronze. 1 of 3 games all weekend with a game total over 44.5 is this Colts Jags game, which is a total of 47. T-Law's boosted his fantasy output via the ground a lot recently, 5 carries in 4 of the last 5 with 3 rushing touchdowns. He also has multiple passing touchdowns in 2 straight. Indy's not an imposing matchup, bottom 5 in attempts and completions allowed to the quarterback. Travis Etienne we'll give a bronze to. We'll keep Tootin on the bench for now. Colts run defense is top 3rd in the league, but they have given up an average of 132 yards on the ground over their last 3. Etienne's getting almost 20 touches per game since the Jags bye in week 8. Tootin has gotten more work recently, but it's come in primarily in huge blowouts over the Chargers and Titans. The receivers are a little interesting. Jacoby Myers, I'll give a bronze, confident bronze too. Myers and T-Law found a nice connection. Myers led the team in catches and yards in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and he only joined the team, I think, 5 weeks ago. Myers hasn't had an explosion game yet. I think that's more due to the game script issues we just talked about. The Jags beat the Chargers and Titans by a combined 60-9. Not a lot of passing needed in those matchups. It's a good matchup for the receivers as well. Indy gives up over 13 catches a game to the position, which is 4th worst in the league. Brian Thomas, man, I can't believe how far we've fallen here. I'm putting him on the bench. He got his first action back from injury last week. He saw 75% of the snaps, so we got kind of a full role, but just 3 targets. And then as an outside receiver, he's going to see more of the Colts' best corner, Treverius Ward. I do kind of like Brian Thomas as just a DFS tournament dart because nobody's going to play him, and I think he's still got that talent. But yeah, keep him on the bench in season long. And then Brenton Strange was the roll the dice tight end this week. I think he's a bronze.
All right. Let's hop over to the Broncos and Raiders. It's all systems go for the Broncos. Troy Franklin was my roll the dice receiver. I like his running mate, Cortland Sutton, as well. In the first matchup, Sutton was held quiet, though. Only 3 catches for 24 yards. but 17 different receivers have hit double-digit PPR points against the Raiders this year in just 12 games. The Broncos have leaned on the pass a bit more since J.K. Dobbins went down. I'll mention that in just a second. Silver grades for both Franklin and Sutton in this one, but I'm leaving Evan Engram on the bench. Randomly, the Raiders are crazy tough against tight ends. Top 3 in every category. Don't go there. Bo Nix gets that silver grade as well, though. The last game Dobbins played, Nix threw 28 passes. In the 2 games since then, 37 and 45 pass attempts, 295 yards and 321 yards in those 2 games, by the way. The Raiders aren't good against the pass. Teams just have run on them so easily that they haven't really had to pass, as both Shadur and Herbert only threw the ball 20 times apiece in their wins over the Raiders in the last 2 weeks. But I think Nix finds his way to a silver here. He usually does. RJ Harvey, I'll give a silver or 2 as well. The matchup is just too good, and I believe in the talent. He just hasn't popped yet. The Raiders are allowing the 3rd most rushing scores in the league, and 4 different running backs have hit double-digit PPR points against the Raiders in the last 2 weeks. So Jaleel McLaughlin could be in play here. McLaughlin. No, you're not going to do that, but oh my gosh, RJ Harvey's in a spot here. Ashton Genty on the other side, his spot is much tougher. It's one of the best run Ds in the league in Denver. Even in losses, though, the Raiders have lost 6 straight games, by the way. They've still committed to Genty. In the last 4 games, touch totals of 22, then he had a 12, but then 25 and 21 in the last 2 weeks. And he's caught 20 passes in the last 3 weeks alone. So it's a volume bronze grade for Genty, but it's a really tough matchup. Denver doesn't give up anything on the ground or through the air to backs. Brock Bowers had a dud game against the Broncos in week 10, only 1 catch for 31 yards, but the Broncos defense gave up 20.6 PPR points to Zach Ertz last week and 24.1 PPR points to Travis Kelce the week before. And I think in his first week in the Greg Olsen offense, it was quite clear they're going to throw the ball to Brock Bowers. He caught both of the touchdowns for the Raiders, including a sick one-hander last week that was probably right there with Treylon Burks for catch of the year. Geno Smith, Trey Tucker, Tyler Lockett. Let's just be real. They're on your bench in mid-grade matchups, and this is not a mid-grade matchup. This is a tough matchup. You're leaving them on the bench. We're not even thinking about them. Let's just move on to the next game. It's the Rams and the Cardinals, and the Rams are reeling a bit after a loss in Carolina last week. But Devontae Adams continues to score touchdowns at an alarming rate. Maj, do you like Adams or Puka Nacua better this week?
Oh gosh. I mean, in a PPR league, I'd probably give the slight edge to Puka, but I've got gold grades on both of those guys because, I mean, shoot, Devontae Adams is just insane, man. 11 touchdowns in his last 6 games.
Do you want to hear my crazy stat that I spouted off on our DFS show yesterday?
Sure.
He has 0 touchdowns in 3 games this season, but he has 2 or more touchdowns in 4 games this season. You have a better chance of getting 2 or 3 touchdowns than you do with 0, and he starts with 0.
Yeah. And, his yardage, he doesn't have the yardage ceiling, right? So in that sense, like, I guess Devontae has the lower floor, but to your point, like, getting in the end zone gets you lots of points. So we can call both of those guys gold. The quarterback, Matt Stafford, silver. He's thrown multiple touchdown passes in 6 straight games, at least 243 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And Arizona's defense below average against quarterbacks this season. They've allowed 17 touchdown passes in 12 games, and that includes starts from Spencer Rattler and Cam Ward, who combined for 0. So against more standard competition, I think that number potentially might be a little higher. Otherwise, in the passing game, you're benching everybody else. Really, no third receiver, of note there to worry about. And it's really the same thing on the tight end side. That's very similar to Pittsburgh in that there's just a lot of cooks in that kitchen. Certainly higher upside in the Los Angeles version of that, but no need to chase there. The running backs is where things get a little interesting, and Trevor alluded to this just with the Kyron Williams-Blake Corum split. I have a gold on Kyron, but it very much could be silver. I think that's arguable there. Whereas I've got a bronze on Corum. Arizona's allowed the 6th most combo scores to running backs this season at 15. With Kyron, he's got 12 or more carries, 13 or more opportunities in every game this season, 10 combined touchdowns, 64 or more combo yards in all but one game this year. So even though, to Trevor's point, those numbers are kind of going down in the second part of the year, he's still, he's never been below 58% of snaps, never more than 70, but he's the starter and the guy that's going to have more opportunities to get that hot hand if they ever go away from kind of that every other split. Now, whereas with Corum, 7 or more opportunities in 6 straight and in 8 of 12 games this season, only scored a 2nd touchdown of the season last week. What I struggle with there is there's not the PPR floor with him that you would like to see if you're going to go with that second back, right? He's only had 10 targets all season. So that is kind of where the risk comes in, but he's getting enough work and it's against a defense that's bad enough against running backs that I think if you had to, you absolutely could go ahead and start him in this one. On the other side of the ball, man, what an injury report. It's a novel every day this week. So let's actually start there. So Marvin Harrison's going to be out with a heel injury. Greg Dortch is going to be out with a chest injury. Trey Benson's going to remain out after having not played since week 4. Amari DiMarcado, we don't know yet. Potentially out again. But so there are a lot of moving pieces here. So let's just start by saying
just announced that Kyler Murray is out for the remainder of the season too.
Yeah. He was part of that today's injury report. Well, very interesting situation with the Arizona quarterbacks from a long-term standpoint. We'll see what happens. But with Brissett, I'm going to give a silver, 2 touchdowns in all but 1 start with 300 more passing yards in 4 of those 7 games. Rams have only allowed 4 multi-touchdown pass games all year, but 3 scores in 3 of those 4. And that includes to Mac Jones and Bryce Young in the last 5 games. You're, of course, giving a gold grade to Trey McBride. Don't need to fawn over all his stats. They're very good, I promise. With Michael Wilson, I'm going to give it would be gold if it was a better matchup. I'm going to give a silver. Played 93% of snaps last week, and that's despite Marvin Harrison coming back for 1 week after that 2-week absence. He actually got a red zone target still, but it was behind him and it wound up being picked. The 2 games without Marvin Harrison, he had 33 targets. just getting fed.
It makes you laugh. It's so bad.
Yeah, 25 catches on 33 targets, and with Dortch also out, he and Trey McBride are just going to get they're going to eat, right? So it's one of those things where if the defense on the Ram side is dominant, they're going to get ahead, and then they fall back and. We've seen plenty of garbage time Arizona passing game points this year, so I can absolutely see that happening here. The one, I guess, guy you could, if you needed to, injury bye week, whatever, Xavier Weaver, you could give a bronze grade to. Now he had a limited practice on Thursday with a hamstring, but it's like they're out of bodies, right? So when Harrison was out, Greg Dortch had 15 targets in those 2 games and scored in both with 119 total yards. Weaver was actually getting snaps in those games, and he even outsnapped Greg Dortch last week, 30-20. But he just wasn't getting targets. Only had 3 targets in the 2 games without Harrison. But because of Dortch also being out, there might be a little bit there if you're absolutely desperate in that one. So I think that's all I got for those 2 teams.
Yikes. Pass funnel offense through 2 players, though. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Both good dart throws on Fanball this week, I would say. All right, Trevor. CJ Stroud and the Texans head to Arrowhead to battle a very desperate Chiefs team. Both teams have really actually great defenses. Who do you have starting on the Texans side in this one?
Yeah, we'll start off. The Vegas total on this game is tough. It's 41.5, and it's a brutal weekend for high totals, but this one specifically, just I'm a Mahomes game with 40 totals. That's a weird one. CJ Stroud, we're going to put on the bench. He was okay in his first start post concussion last week. 276 yards, no touchdowns, and he doesn't scramble. Kansas City's 12th best at passing yards per game allowed, and has given up just 13 passing touchdowns all year. It's good for 6th best in the league. It's hard for me to see Stroud with any more than 2 passing touchdowns at most here. Woody Marks, we get a starting grade on with the bronze. his workload is kind of the only reason he's viable right now, because it's great. He's got 19, 17, and 20 touches in his last 3 games. That's as good as you can ask for. However, 0 touchdowns and hasn't broken 70 combo yards in that stretch. Kansas City is a tough matchup for backs as well, allowing the fewest touches to enemy runners in the league. He's getting 18 plus touches. You're starting him, but expectations should be limited. Nico Collins, I'll give a silver to. Collins and Stroud showed better chemistry last week than they did earlier in the season. Collins saw 10 targets in Stroud's first game back. Collins does have double-digit targets in 5 of his last 6 as well, and is averaging 91 yards per game over his last 5. Matchup's not imposing either. Kansas City is just 14th against opposing receivers in 2025, and the Houston passing attack just runs through Nico Collins. Maggio already gave Jaden Higgins as his roll the dice player, and I agree, it's a good bronze start. Dalton Schultz actually rounds out the bronzes. He's been consistently moderately productive recently, with at least 6 catches in 4 of his last 5 games. The Chiefs have allowed 5 catches each to the last 2 number 1 tight ends they faced. It's not a game-breaking play, but he actually has one of the better floors among fantasy tight ends right now. And then on the Chiefs side, Mahomes will give a silver. He's been excellent recently. And he needs to be, right? Because if they lose, it might just be over this week. He's in a stretch of 6 straight games with at least 34 passing attempts. And we've recently seen the playoff Mahomes, who's more willing to scramble. He's got 7 carries over the past 2 weeks, and he's turned that into 30 rushing yards in each game. Houston is the toughest matchup for opposing quarterbacks. But like I said, this is must-have territory for Kansas City, and they are at home. Mahomes did put up 290 combo yards and 2 touchdowns on Houston in week 16 last year. Much of the same personnel, but obviously it's a different year, so can't take a ton of stock from that. Running backs, Kareem Hunt will give bronze to. Pacheco we're keeping on the bench. Despite Hunt handling 33 touches 4 days before Thanksgiving, he still out-touched Pacheco in Pacheco's first game back on Thursday there with 15 touches to Pacheco's 5. If Houston's defense has a weak point, quote unquote, it's the run game where they're just 9th best against the position. So you're kind of looking at 15 touches and, a coin flips chance at falling into the end zone for Kareem Hunt here. Rashee Rice is a goal play. Despite being suspended and hurt for a decent chunk of the season, he has 7 more red zone targets than anyone else on the team. He's essentially the goal line back. He's kind of the Devontae Adams of the Chiefs right now. Back-to-back 12-target, 8-catch games. He's an excellent play. The rest of the receivers we're keeping on the bench. Xavier Worthy is the only guy you kind of consider. He's got 1 receiving touchdown all year, broken 60 yards just twice. I don't really think he's kind of a good player, and especially when Rice is there, there's just not enough volume for him. And then Travis Kelce kind of had a bit of a throwback here. We're giving him a silver grade. Been pretty consistent this year, just 1 game under 8 PPR points all year. Recently, he's gone 7 of 8 with at least 50 yards or a touchdown. It is a tough matchup, like everybody facing the Texans is. But the 2 best tight ends that Houston saw this year were Tyler Warren and George Kittle. Kittle went 4 for 43 and 1, and Warren also got on the board with 3 catches, 22, and a touchdown.
Oh, there we go. So a touchdown incoming for Travis Kelce this week.
I think so.
All right. Today's final matchup is the Saints and Buccaneers, which is not a battle for the NFC South as of right now. Tyler Shuck was my roll the dice quarterback. So I must like his receivers a little bit. Chris Olave and Devon Vele, both in play with silver grades this week. Vele caught all 8 of his targets last week for 93 yards and a score, had 7 targets the week before as well. Olave scored last week too. He's only missed hitting 11 PPR points in 1 game this season. He's been the model of consistency. Tampa has allowed some anonymous wide receivers to have big days recently. Tyrell Shavers had a 19 PPR point day. Kyle Williams and Mac Hollins each topped 14 for the Patriots. And Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed each topped 14 PPR points for, checks notes, the Saints. So we got that going for us. I'll throw a bronze grade on Juwan Johnson too. He's hit double-digit PPR points in 5 of his last 6. And last week was the one where he missed the mark. He was targeted 9 times. Hit the button. Come on. There it is.
9 times.
He was targeted 9 times in that game and has been targeted 7 or more times in 7 of 12 games this year. Bucks are middle of the pack tight end defense. They gave up 5 for 53 to Johnson in the first meeting. Devin Neal is known for his pass catching abilities. He faces off against a Buccaneers team that has allowed the most receiving yards in the league to opposing backs. It's a tougher task to run on them as they're only giving up 77 yards per game on the ground. But on the receiving prowess alone, I'm going to give Neal a Shibuichi grade, which is somewhere between a silver and a bronze. Bucky Irving came back to a bell cow role last week, 19 touches, 81 combo yards, and a score. The Saints are seeing the third most touches to running backs in the leagues, as running backs are averaging almost 30 touches per game against them. 24 of those are easily going to Bucky, so I'm going to give him a gold grade. Baker Mayfield is banged up, and he's struggled for a bit here. He's not thrown multiple passing scores in 3 straight games. He's been held under 230 passing yards in 5 of his last 6 games. And that includes a week 8 meeting with the Saints where he limped to only 152 yards and no scores. I've got a bench grade on Baker Mayfield in this one. The Saints have allowed the 6th fewest passing yards at only 202 per game. That's probably where we're looking for Baker to get here if he wants to return value, maybe 202 and a score. That's kind of bench grade for Baker right now. I'm giving only bronze grades to Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka. Godwin went back to being Godwin last week. He had 3 catches for 78 yards. Egbuka led the team in targets, as he almost always does, but he's done next to nothing with them recently. He's hit double-digit PPR points only once in his last 7 games, and he's kind of closer to a bench grade than Godwin is, but Egbuka still gets 8 targets every week. The Saints have allowed the 5th fewest receptions and the 7th fewest yards to wide receivers, but they do give up about a touchdown per game to the position. One of those 2 guys is going to get it. I don't know who gets it. I should note that Mike Evans, his practice window opened this week too, but they already ruled him out for week 14. And Cade Otton doesn't do anything unless 2 or more wide receivers are hurt. So he's definitely on your bench. All right. I got to hit this button over here. Let's see. Oh, wait. Everything's jamming up on me. Come on. All right.
Only one man would dare give you the raspberry.
Lone Star. It was Lone Star, wasn't it? All right. It's time for Lightning Round. To end the show, we'd like to bring back a little segment from way back. You know it. It's called Lightning Round. This is your hardest lineup decision between 2 players and 2 players only. It's one of 2. If you include 3 players, we will metaphorically hang up on you. If you'd like to be featured on Lightning Round, find my Twitter handle at Explosive Output. Each week, I'll put up a Lightning Round thread. We'll pick a few and answer them rapid fire. If you put it up as a poll, by the way, then people who are reading the thread could just answer those questions for you too and give you another data point there. So, Maj and Trevor, are you guys ready for Lightning Round?
Yes, sir.
All right. Here we go. We'll start with Trevor. Josh Laurent, who does the Fantasy Football Almost Daily Report Card on Twitter, he asks, Devin Neal or DeAndre Swift in his Guillotine League?
Yeah, I think we've talked up Devin Neal a lot. I'm going with Devin Neal better here. I think he sees a bit more of a workload, and I actually think Saints Bucks has a better shootout potential than Packers Bears.
All right. Maj, Anthony Clapp asks, Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones this week?
I'm going to go ahead and go with Jalen Hurts in that one by probably a decent margin, honestly. Daniel Jones, yeah, he stayed steady, but without much in the way of ceiling in the last month, to Trevor's point, playing on that broken leg just really snuffs out any of the rushing upside he had. Maybe Hurts has a lower floor in this one by a tiny bit, but just a much higher ceiling despite the more difficult matchup.
All right. Trevor, Derek Ruckert wants to know, RJ Harvey or Travis Etienne this week?
I think Etienne's workload's a little bit safer, so I'm going to lean Etienne against the Colts.
All right. Daryl Hancock is asking, Michael Wilson or Cortland Sutton?
It's got to be Michael Wilson here with the news about most of Arizona's team not playing because of injury. Like I said, 33 targets in 2 games, man. Sutton just doesn't have that. He's not getting that workload. And while he's got a great matchup, I just think you've got to go with Wilson and all those opportunities.
Trevor, John A. Booty. I don't know if that's his real name. I hope it is. He asks, Jalen Warren or Emeka Egbuka in PPR flex?
Is this John David Booty's cousin?
Dad,
with
probably.
middle name Anthony or something?
Yeah.
Warren's floor is better, I think, but especially in PPR, Egbuka's upside is better. Just he's got the 30-point outcome in there. I don't know that Warren does. I would go with Egbuka.
All right. Maj, Adam asks, Joe Burrow in Buffalo or post-surgery Justin Herbert on Monday Night Football?
I'm going to go Burrow in that one. He's just going to have to keep his foot on the gas there. That game's got that 53.5 over under, while the Philly Chargers game is way down at 41. So just a lot more upside there.
Okay, Maj, I got another Burrow one, so I'll stick with you. So Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, and that's from Papa Buck.
Yeah, I honestly, I went back and forth on this one, but I'm going to go with Burrow just because with Lamar's injuries, I just don't think he has the rushing floor that, provides the safety you would want to attack the ceiling that he would have when healthy. And again, just that Pittsburgh Baltimore over under 42.5 compared to that 53.5. So more upside for Burrow in this one.
All right, Trevor. Tyler Morgan on Twitter wanted to get real grimy here. Tyler Shuck or Tyrod Taylor? Both roll the dice candidates here.
Yeah.
Yes, Tyler. Well, let me answer Tyler's question about Tyler or Tyrod by saying Tyrod. I'm going to go Tyrod this week. I think the nearly 30 rushing yards per game, that's going to give me the edge.
All right. Maj, Eric wants a starter between Drake London and Brian Thomas Jr. I think Drake London was ruled out, right?
Yeah. The layup there. I'll tell you, Brian
That was
Thomas
close.
Jr. will absolutely outdo Drake London this week.
Maybe.
Are you
What
sure?
What if he catches one ball for negative 12 yards and
That would be
we
wild.
caused a listener of the matchup. Yeah.
and Drake London was the better play all
Misses the
along?
playoffs because I said to start Brian Thomas Jr. over inactive Drake London.
There we go. Trevor, Zach Dubé wants to know Khalil Shakir or Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, I know we're excited about A.D. Mitchell after last week, but give me Shakir. That game has got the 54 over-under. I want to get as much exposure to that as I can.
All right, Maj, it's down to 2 players in a guillotine league for Ryan Schwartz. He wants to know Kyron Williams or Ken Walker.
Because I'm glad that he defined the guillotine aspect of this, because that did actually cause my answer to be different than it would have otherwise. I'm going to go with Walker because of the floor with the targets. He gets decent number more targets in the passing game than Kyron does. So, there's probably a little better touchdown potential for Kyron just due to the way they use Charbonnet, like Trevor talked about in the matchup with Seattle. But because it's guillotine, you're trying to make sure you're maximizing your floor. And both of these guys have higher end ceilings because of their matchups and just their, the way that they're used. So I'm going to go with the safer option in Walker, even though Kyron's got the better touchdown potential.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought the safety would have been in Kyron. But no,
not in a PPR guillotine. You're probably going to get 3-4 free points just with catches with Walker,
right,
where it might just be 1 or 2 with Kyron.
The last one of lightning round, it's for Trevor. Richard Charles wants to know Woody Marks or Kareem Hunt, and I believe you just previewed this game.
I did. Yeah, it's kind of just 2 guys who are getting volume and not doing anything with it. But Woody Marks is younger and is getting a little more volume. So I'm going to go with Woody Marks in this spot.
All right. That was like the first lightning round in about 10 years. So you guys did a great job. We got to 12 of them. That's pretty good. Let's thank both Trevor and Maj for all your hard work this week. It's not an easy task to get this show going. So give those guys a follow on their social platforms. Noco Maggio on Blue Sky and T Jones 5 on Twitter. And any parting words you guys have for this week?
Go Bears.
Well, it can't be a worse slate than we had last Sunday. So much better day of football.
Yeah,
everyone.
no doubt.
I'm looking forward to this Sunday. Just a quick reminder before we go on Game Blazers. Try Game Blazers this week. $36,000 in prizes and free roll contests. And if you sign up using our referral code FFAD, you get a free starter pack, a free rare pack, and they'll give you an offer where you can spend $5, get 2 more rare packs. That's a $50 value. Ooh. So go get that over at gameblazers.com or check out the mobile app. It's a pretty fun game to play. Trevor and Maj and I all play it in our internal contest. It's good times. All right. This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Good luck to all of you in your final fantasy week of the regular season. We'll see you next week.
This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts.